As a young kid, I just always knew that I would have a business, but I had no clue what that would be. I started because my fiance would listen to Bigger Pockets episodes in his truck. And I just remember one day listening and thinking, if these people are doing it, I could do it.
No one talks about that kind of stuff. They talk about how to find the deal, advertise yourself, but then once you get the deal, then what do?
I've always believed you should self-manage to the point where you can hire somebody on your own team instead of hiring a third-party company.
All your properties are in a 15-mile radius. What's the main benefit that you have in being in such a fine market?
No one's born knowing how to invest in real estate. When you go into a room that's not intimidating, you're just going to be so much more comfortable.
All right, welcome to episode 43 of the Agent to Investor podcast, where we talk about the agent side of real estate investing. We'll be talking about the successes, the failures, and all in between. My name is Nico Garcia, local real estate agent and investor based out of Montgomery County, Maryland. And as always, I'm joined by my lovely co-host.
I'm Anna Bilek, Northern Virginia realtor and mostly out-of-state investor. And today we have another special guest. So we have Grace Gudenkauf. Grace is gracing us with her presence to chat with us about investing and how it's changed her life. We had her partner in crime in business. Amelia was on a previous podcast and we're like, we can't do one without having the other. So Grace is with us today to talk about real estate investing and how it's changed her life. And me personally, like you changed mine when I heard you speak at Bigger Pockets and you actually gave us like processes and standard operating procedures, which as a former government employee, I was like, no one talks about this kind of stuff. It made me like so happy. So thank you for coming and chatting with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And I love hearing that it changed your business. That's incredible.
It did. No one talks about that kind of stuff. They talk about how to like find the deal, how to like find, advertise yourself for private money. But then once you get the deal, then what do? How do you not make it your full-time job? Most people don't talk about that.
Exactly.
That's right. Yeah, Grace is a rock star in the business. If you follow her on any social media, she's got a lot going on, and we want to make sure that this is a nice, concise episode. But before we do that, Grace, do you mind giving us like a little bit of a background of where you're from and then what initially got you into real estate?
Yeah, I grew up in small town Iowa where my parents worked the same jobs their whole entire lives. And I think as a young kid, I just always wanted to be different. So I always knew that I would have a business, but I had no clue what that would be. I went to college, got an engineering degree because I wanted to prove that I was smarter than the boys. And then I lasted like 9 months in my engineering job until I ended up quitting to do real estate full time, which looking back, I was like, whoa, that is crazy that I did that. But it worked out. But what happened was it was COVID. I was graduating college. I was supposed to move across the country to California, and I had just gotten my feet wet into real estate. And I started to realize if I move there and continue with this career path, I'll never be able to do real estate because I started with very little money. And I started because my boyfriend would listen at the time, now fiance, would listen to Bigger Pockets episodes in his truck. And I just remember one day listening and thinking, I could do that. If these people are doing it, I could do it. So we decided to do a fixer-upper project, DIY, miserable, over the winter in Iowa. We thought we'd be done by the spring. It ended up taking 6 whole months, doubled the timeline, doubled the renovation costs, hated every second of it. But somehow at the very end, I was like, we should do this again. Because I was addicted to realizing, oh my gosh, I had a perfect BRRRR. I can pull all my money out and do it again. And that's really what lit the spark inside me.
That's so cool. Your fiance, yeah, that's awesome. So he was listening, but did he have any experience with real estate or did you guys just listen and jump right in?
Yeah, he worked for an investor in college, would go to rental properties and be a laborer, which is crazy to think about. Because if he hadn't done that, he probably wouldn't have ever gotten interested and maybe I wouldn't be here. And then after he graduated college, he did one flip with his grandpa and I would have helped paint the walls. And I thought to myself like, oh, this is a good idea someday. But I didn't think I could ever do that. And I was still in college at the time. He did do the first real estate deal. It's so funny because their flip was supposed to be 3 months. It took them a year and a day from close to close, which they ended up celebrating because then they got long-term capital gain, short-term capital gain. So that was the inside joke of you're mad it's taking so long and then you're happy after you hit that 1 year.
That's funny. Did your So your boyfriend had this kind of in his background. If he did this with his grandpa, I guess there was some entrepreneurship. You said your parents worked the same jobs their whole career. What did they think of this turn of events in your life? Were they on board? Were they like, yeah, just go for it?
Yeah, I think my confidence comes from my parents always telling me I could do whatever I want. And I feel very grateful that they've always supported me and said I could do anything from a young age. So my mom right away was like, okay, sure. For some reason, my dad, I was so nervous to tell him. In fact, I kept telling other people and not him. And my sister was like, what the heck are you doing? You have to go tell him. So I went and told him. I started crying because I thought he was going to be like sad or mad or whatever. And he just patted me on the back and said, can't wait. Sounds great. And then 2 years later, he was my second full-time employee for my real estate business. He's since moved to part-time. He's 64 or something. So he did not need a full-time job. Yeah, what a 180. I was crying to him, and then he eventually became an employee.
That's so awesome because having supportive parents and a supportive partner is so awesome. And I think your dad, as your employee, he's like the handyman, right? So you work closely with him on projects and rental properties.
Exactly. Yes,
That's-
he does. He is my handyman, and then he does a lot of random tasks for me that I can't do because I'm in Tucson and I invest in Iowa.
Yeah. So I guess we can go into that. How did out of state investing? I guess naturally you started in Iowa and then you ended up moving to Tucson, but you're more hands off in terms of managing these properties, right? Do you have property managers?
I don't have a property manager. I had built an internal team at one point, but I started so hands-on. I was doing everything, swinging the hammer, being the property manager, the bookkeeper, the cleaner. That was terrible. And for 2 years, me and Brant did that because he accidentally quit his job because we thought we were going to be moving from my job. And then we ended up being for 2 years swinging the hammer. And I hate this. And I knew to grow that we needed to stop being in the day-to-day. I knew I didn't want a job. I wanted a business. So randomly, he started applying for jobs. He's also an engineer, got a good job in Tucson. So we packed up and moved in like less than a month. We'd never been there, didn't know anybody who lived there, but I was like, sounds cool. It'll get me out of the day-to-day. Let's freaking do it. So we have now been in Tucson for 2 years. And then I started to build an internal team to manage things back in Iowa. In 2024, I was up to 2 full-time employees and a part-time employee. I had a full-time project manager, maintenance person, and a part-time property manager on my payroll. Since then, I've scaled down, realizing, okay, that's not really what I want to do is flip houses full-time. But I've always believed you should self-manage to the point where until you can hire somebody on your own team instead of hiring it out to a third-party company who charges a lot of money for you to be bottom priority.
Yes, I agree with that statement a lot. I suffer through that problem now, and I'm trying to get out of it by managing properties on my own from a distance. So I understand that. I'm curious to see or ask, and I don't know if you have a defining moment, like what was it that influenced you to know that you wanted a business and not another job? Because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs can't make that shift and they feel like they have to do everything themselves. But you got it pretty quickly. I think it takes years for other people to figure this out.
Yeah, and it's so hard when you're DIY to get out of it because I remember trying to analyze our first few properties with actually hiring a crew and being like, it literally doesn't work. Like, we can't do it. It doesn't work, which isn't true. You have to readjust your expectations and also know when I do hire it out, I can do 3 at once instead of 1 at once. But there was an aha moment. I remember after finishing our first burr, we were trying to go to Colorado to camp and visit a friend, but we hadn't finished the project. So we literally had to keep pushing back our trip. And I just remember thinking, we just cannot always be the ones to do this. That summer, we missed so many events and things that were happening with friends and family because we had to get this project done. And I also just was smart enough to realize, okay, I am not the best at this, clearly. And there's no way that Brant is truly the best renovator around. There are people who are better than us. Like, we can figure out how to run a business where we hire others. Because also, I'm the kind of person that I look at other people, I'm like, those ding-dongs are doing it, I can do it. I don't know, maybe that's ignorance, but that's, like I said, when I was listening to that first BP episode, and I was like, I could do this if this person's doing that.
Yeah. I call it competitiveness, not ignorance.
Yeah, you're right. Competitiveness. And just logically, okay, this person is doing all these things. Do I really think they're so much smarter than me? No. I feel like I could probably do it. Okay, that means I could do it if they're doing it.
Exactly. So Grace, I know you have, you mentioned a few burrs that you do and you're a rental landlord. What does your current portfolio look like? I know you have a pretty cool new construction project that I've been following. So how does it currently look?
My entire portfolio is in a 15-minute radius, which I think is pretty cool. I'm very deep into one market, my hometown where I grew up. And when I first started, I would buy anything that would make sense, mostly single families and small multifamily, but I was doing creative financing, private money, burrs, anything to buy a property. Now I am building a triplex new build, which has been really fun and interesting. I have about 30 units, all smaller than fourplexes. I do long-term and midterm. And I'm really trying to start swapping out some of those initial properties that are older or maybe have more maintenance and aren't performing as well for better, more solid properties. When I first got started, I needed every dollar of cash flow. I would hustle for an extra $20 a month like no other. But now that I have Wire and other businesses where I have active income, I'm really trying to focus on making my current portfolio more passive. So getting better properties, nicer properties, and selling off the older ones.
Grace,
Pruning, exactly. That's a good term. I'm pruning.
pruning the portfolio.
I stole that from Chad.
Yeah, Coach
Yes, Chad, he always talks about that. I never heard him say the word pruning, but that makes so much sense. He always talks about buy, sell some. Buy, sell some. So you're always keeping the very best. Love that.
Grace, what's the benefit? You mentioned that all your properties are in a 15-mile radius. What would you say is, and it's your hometown, what's the main benefit that you have in being in such a prime market?
When I hear investors say, I have one property in Ohio, one in Minnesota, one in California, one in Vegas, I'm like, wow, that is like running 4 separate businesses. You have no economy of scale. You have to have 4 separate teams, a different lender, realtor, handyman, whatever, cleaner. And when you're in one spot, you can do business so quick. And that's really what's important. You want to be able to move quick. People who have successful businesses or do successful real estate projects is because they're the first to offer, the first to do something new, the first to iterate, the first to pivot. So if I get an address, I know within probably 25% of if I want it or not and what it's probably going to be worth. Like, I really don't have to dig too far into it to figure out, do I want to pursue this or not? And the relationships, I have the same team, the same lender. I've done 30 deals and all of my actual business loans, except for 2, have been with the same banker. So it's so easy to get a loan. It's so easy to write a scope of work with my contractor. It's so easy to work with my realtor because we've done it 20, 30 times.
Yeah. That's a really good point because I'm in at least 3 different markets now for various reasons. The difficulty is that you meet a contractor for the first time and you're still a small fish in the pond because you have 1 or 2 properties and they don't pay you as much attention. And if you're just going back to them intermittently as you buy a property here or there, it is very difficult to build that, I'll say, reliable team.
Yeah. I want to be the big fish in the small pond. I want to be the go-to. And I started to create that for myself, which is crazy. Like, I'll have people message me probably once a week about a property that's for sale off market. And I'm like, I have no clue who you are. How did you get my number? But I don't ask that. I'm like, sure, send me the info. And people just know that I am the person who does X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And it makes it so much easier to do business.
That actually ties into my next question, Grace. How are you getting these deals? I know you mentioned off market. You have a go-to agent. We're the Agent to Investor podcast. So we're always curious, are you working with agents or do you have a big network of other people, wholesalers?
I've bought probably 2/3 of my deals off market, but I do have a great agent. She's incredible. She's also an investor. Her name's Caitlin Nikolaev. She found me because she heard me on the Bigger Pockets Rookie podcast, reached out to me cold, and now we're legitimately friends. And so she knows what I want. She knows my buy box. She'll email me things that she sees. It's not just the drip campaign of anything that comes onto the market. But then I also have a Facebook page where I actually haven't posted in a long time because I've got a lot of outstanding projects I've got to finish up. But I always advertise that I do $1,000 referrals as long as you get me in contact with an owner who's selling off market. So I've paid contractors, friends, neighbors, family, teachers, tenant. I've paid 2 tenants before.
Oh.
And then also, again, just your name being circulated, where another interesting thing that wholesalers do, there's somebody out there who teaches this method. I don't know who it is, probably a bunch of people, where they go and they take these 19-year-old boys who think they're going to make $1 million in wholesaling. And then they go find this random market in Iowa, which for me is Cedar Rapids. And then they probably look up on PropStream or Investor Lift who is buying in the area. And then I always get these cold Facebook messages. It's like the same profile every time, different person, but same, out of state, knows nothing about Iowa, very young and hungry, messaging me about deals. I used to not take them seriously and be like, okay, go away. But now I've started to train them. I'm like, yes, I do buy a lot. Here's exactly what I want. Here's what you're going to do if you find a lead that you can't close. Give it to me. I'll pay you a referral. So there's just a lot of different ways that I find deals. And I feel like no two are the same.
That's a good one. I get those random phone calls lately where it's, are you still buying properties? And I'm just like, but I get so many spam calls. But now I'm
used to
like,
always hang up. And I heard somebody say once, you can make so much money training bad wholesalers to be your own personal acquisitionist. And I was like, light bulb. Oh my God, they're young and hungry. I don't want to do the work, but I'm the one that will pay you because I'm the one who will actually buy the property. So let me actually give you some pointers, redirect you, and figure out how you can make us both money
that's genius. So do you pay them once you close?
when we close.
Okay.
So
Exactly.
it sounds like you're being the name in the market, the go-to. People know, okay, Grace, this is her buy box. And I know you shared your template for buy box, which is cool because I use that as well. Can you specific about what you're looking for? And people know, okay, when I find this, Grace will actually get us to the finish lines. And I also think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, you and Amelia met at a meetup. That's how you got introduced to locally?
With social media.
Or was
Yeah. I slid into her DMs and then we started an online meetup. And I also just want to add, there are so many other people in my market who are way bigger than me. I'm not saying I am the number one person. I'm just saying I'm getting to the point where people do recognize my name. So I feel like just want to say that. But yes, Matt, Amelia, through social media, I was posting about real estate before I even bought a house. I bought my first house hack, Primary Nice Craftsman, and I posted like a stack of real estate books I was reading. And I was like, anybody else into real estate? This is so fun. About to buy my first house. Eventually, I saw her, slid into her DMs, said, hey, we should do a Zoom meetup for other women in real estate because I don't know anybody and it'd be so fun to have friends. So we did it in January of 21. Like 35 people showed up and I was like, what? I thought this was going to be me, you, your mom, my mom, one other person. And after that, it was, okay, let's do it again next month. And then we just kept We kept doing that next month, until eventually, slowly but surely, we started adding in ways that we were actually generating money. We started with retreats, which I told her she was crazy. I already emailed it out. We've sold tickets. We have to do it. I'm like, oh my God, what the heck is happening? Until now, we have 150 people, including Anna in our community. And it's all across the US. And we're going on for our 10th retreat.
Yeah, that's crazy. You found your yin and your yang. Like you're the yin and yang with Amelia. Like you guys both complement each other so well. It's fun to watch you guys like engage and interact. And she'll even be like, oh, I don't have my processes quite down yet, but it's fine. Grace will get me squared.
It is. I am so grateful for social media through all the people I have met, and especially Amelia. I just feel so lucky. And there's no way that I would have done this or gone this far alone.
Yeah.
It's so hard to constantly be alone because I am with real estate. It's just me. I did have a bit of a team, but it's just me as head decision maker. And it's taxing, it's tiring, it can be stressful. So having a good business partner is fantastic.
Yeah, especially a female, because I feel like in a lot of these group meetups, it's dudes everywhere. And you almost feel out of place until you realize there are other women that are into this and doing really well. It's not just a guy's game.
Mm-hmm. It's no offense, Nico, but Amelia and I, my joke is always men in real estate.
Love it. And no, but that's a cool origin story, how you guys met. And now you guys built such a cool community, the Wire community. You mind talking about, I know Amelia talked a little bit about it. To tell us more about the Wire community, the women invest in real estate community that you guys built.
Our mission is to help women become W-2 optional through real estate investing. And most importantly, to create a life by their own design. You'll never see us touting a Lambo or how much we work and how many units we own, because we always will pick freedom over more work and more money. So I really like that. I think that really attracts the right person. We have our yearly membership, has 150 women. We started that actually pretty recently in November. It's so much fun, made so many friends through it. And then we do retreats. We have podcasts, couple courses and boot camps, and we speak at different places, like where we met at different conferences, like Bigger Pockets. And it's just a lot of fun. I work on that about 3 days a week, and I do real estate about 2 days a week.
And like we mentioned before, you wrote a book with Amelia. We didn't even talk about the book. I don't have it with me because I'm not in my house, but there's a book, that one.
We did. Apparently, we think everything is a 2-person job, but it was a lot of fun. And we wrote it about a year ago. And the first time that Bigger Pockets told us what the topic was going to be, we were like, it's boring. But then we were like, there's actually so many great things we can say about systems, processes, treating your business like a business, even if you have 1, 2, or 3 properties. And to hear people say their takeaways or things they've implemented in their business makes me really happy. And I'm actually really proud of what we put together.
Yeah. It's a fantastic book. I am a small landlord. We have 3 rental properties, and I was just going through the flow. And then after reading the book, there's little systems, and technology is so advanced now that you can manage a lot of your properties, even from afar. I know Grace is doing that now. So it's really cool. And I know Anna also self-manages her properties from afar. So I know she's been using a lot of the systems that are in this book as well.
Yes, I have. So I guess that's a question without giving away too much because you want people to go buy the book. It's totally worth it. Mine is like dog ears and like sticky tabs everywhere. So for someone that is stuck in the rut of their business is now their job and they want to pivot to making it a true business, what would you say are the first, 3 steps that someone can take to make that transition? What would you tell them to do first?
Number 1 is start writing a few checklists that you can turn into SOPs, which is a fancy way. It's called standard operating procedure to just say how you do something. But to even start writing those SOPs, another huge thing is start to recognize the hats that you wear in your business. If you have rental properties and a few flips going on, there's a few different people that you are. You're the acquisitionist, you're the property manager, you're the project manager, you're the CFO, maybe you're the cleaner, the bookkeeper, the CEO. You're all of those things, whether you realize it or not. And so if you can write on paper the different hats that you wear, then you'll start to see, how can I systemize each little department? What SOPs and checklists do I need? Could I do all of my property management things Tuesday morning and group them all together? So now I'm not just running around doing all these tasks as they pop up. Could I do all of my bookkeeping and financial things Thursday mornings? So I have 2 hours set aside where maybe you do your bookkeeping, you check your bank accounts, check for rent, write checks, pay bills, all of those things. So identify your hats, your departments, write some checklists, and then actually schedule time on your calendar to execute those different departments. And that is going to set you up for absolute success to start delegating if you feel that you get to a point where you want to or need to. And even if you decide, I don't ever want to delegate, I'm totally fine owning 4 rental properties and doing this all myself. At least it's organized. And okay, I'm doing all of these certain types of tasks on Tuesdays. It always gets done. I'm never overwhelmed. I don't have to dread it all week because I know it only happens once a week instead of every time it pops up.
Yeah, I think organization is such a challenge for a lot of entrepreneurs because they're so used to just going throughout the day and putting out fires and things like this. I know your book talks a lot about organization and using technology to stay organized for your business and keep treating it like it.
I always say you're a CEO whether you think you are or not. The second you have a rental property, you are the owner of your business. Leasing and creating spaces that people live in is not serious enough to be defined as a business. I have no idea what on earth is.
That's a very fair statement. So has your brain, this is slightly off topic, but this is what I do. Has your brain always functioned with this like level of wanting to organize things? Or is that from being an engineering student and graduate? Because I know engineers are very analytical, very detail oriented. I'm married to one. So is it just the way your brain works? Is it because of what you studied? Tell me more.
You would never believe how messy my room was growing up. I think my mom thought I was going to be the biggest slob in the world. And now I'm somebody who makes my bed every single day. My bed's not made, it ruins my day because I need the clarity and I need the structure. And so for me, my engineering brain is really good at problem solving and root cause analysis. So for me, those SOPs They're all building blocks back to your source code of whatever the source of truth is. If you've heard me speak elsewhere, I talk a lot about source of truth and in the book. So I can really follow a workflow and figure out where the start of that workflow is, or if something gets off the rails, where did that happen? So it's very easy to me. And I also think decision fatigue is huge. My brain goes 100 miles an hour. I do a lot of different things. I only have so many decisions in me a day to make. And so my workflows and my systems and processes are like guardrails that help me not have to make decisions because they tell me what to do. I found that once I started implementing that in my business, it just felt so easy. It made so much sense. And it made my brain have to work not as hard because my business was making decisions for me according to the processes that I wrote.
Okay. So it was a level of self-awareness, realizing this is what I need and how I need to structure things in order to be successful.
Yes,
All right. Drop mic. I'm done.
I love it. And I always skip the story about a messy room because people are like, I'm just not like that. And I'm like, I don't know if I was like that. I think a part of me was, but I also needed a little bit of the guardrails to bring that out of myself.
Yeah.
Like you said, the self-awareness to be like, this is what I need to operate businesses and live my life the best way possible. Like I'm about to start hiring a cleaner to come consistently once a week. And I literally started thinking about the SOPs I was going to write her. And another thing is like meal prepping. And I'm like, okay, if I meal prep, I want the fridge cleaned and I want all expired things to be thrown away. So that has to happen before it. Before that, we need to order the groceries because it comes from Walmart subscription. And so I literally started writing a checklist because my fiance and I go every other week.
Yep.
And I'm like, Brent, you got to follow this checklist. This is the order of things that need to happen because I need it to be like just run the same way every time.
Yeah.
And then that way we have a nice fridge, everything. We have all the containers we need. There's no gross food stinking up the fridge. So that's just how my mind thinks.
It adds a
No,
level of clarity, right? And it's
Yeah.
Probably an extreme example.
No, but I'm right there with you. I was the same way. Like you would have to step over piles of shit in my room to get from one place to another. But I also have developed some self-awareness where like these checklists, I think it was like that because I didn't have a system in place and it was overwhelming to think of where to put things and how to. So it ended up just everywhere. And that's why you need the guardrails. Otherwise you get stuck and nothing happens.
And for me, back to the groceries, I'd be really frustrated throughout the week eating out or not having anything to cook and feeling overwhelmed with trying to go to the grocery store because I don't have the time. So I had to back it up and go, okay, what is the original root problem? It's that I'm not planning out my meals and ordering groceries accordingly. So just being able to take a step back and be like, where is this stemming from? That's what you need to fix, not the trickle down effects that happen every day or every week. Go back to the root of the cause, the root of the problem.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, for every facet of your life, not just real estate investing, but just pretty much every. I love it. Okay.
I did have one more real estate question. I know you built a great community for women, and I can't remember the statistic off the top of my head, but why don't you think more women invest in real estate?
I think it's very intimidating to be somebody who's different in a room. Real estate seems very complex on the outside. No one's born knowing how to invest in real estate. So when you can go into a room that's not intimidating and you recognize people that look like you, whether it's gender, race, disability, language, nationality, whatever, you're just going to be so much more comfortable. And real estate can be really high stress. So you have to be comfortable and be investing from a place of strength. And that might mean being surrounded by people who understand you or in a similar situation. And so in general, it can be very intimidating to try to get in the community or the people who invest and be around them and figure it out from square zero.
And I know you just built this community with Amelia, but what is your vision for the Wire community? Like in 3 years, what do you see your guys' community being?
I will say my biggest weakness is goals and like vision casting. For me personally, I love systems and processes consulting. We've integrated that a little bit into our CEO bootcamp at Wire, but just continuing to really focus on our Wire community membership and have that be our number one bread and butter thing to where we can serve some great investors who in turn turn around and provide great housing for their communities, are trusted landlords, and are building new housing, because that's what we need. A lot of people love to vilify investors. And I saw a comment on a Facebook the other day that said, "We're in a housing shortage. Shame on you." And I replied, exactly why we need investors who will build. You're totally right. We need investors because we're in a housing shortage. The government is not going to build all those houses, and we don't want them to. So, long answer, but just to really pour into our community for the next 3 years and continue to have our community affect their communities in positive ways.
Okay. And I know you're selective about who's coming. Do you guys have a cap of how many people can join?
We open our doors a few times a year. I think the next time will be in August or July. And that's because we just want to make sure that people are really getting to know each other and having a tight-knit cohort. And you can really feel familiar again and not intimidated by the people you're interacting with.
Love it. Okay. And I know we're running close on time. We had a few final questions, and I know you spoke a little bit about it, but other than real estate, what are some things that you and your fiance like to do? Like some hobbies?
I love hiking. He's very into cars, always has 2 or 3 broken down cars that he's working on. So it's fun to watch him do that. He got a 85 Saab convertible recently. So we've been buzzing that around. I would say being outdoors, camping and hiking, Tucson is a great place to do that.
Just that I said that you picked the right place to be doing that. I love Arizona. It's beautiful.
Mhm.
What would you say is the best piece of advice, and what would you say is the worst piece of advice? It doesn't have to be real estate related.
Mine actually would be real estate related. And it was, if you have a good deal, you'll figure out how to buy it. And that was really what I lived by my first year or two, is I would find a great deal, and then I knew I would figure out how to finance it, whether it was creative, private money, or partnering with somebody. So don't let that stop you. Other than that, I think some great advice is just to enjoy the journey. I'm really bad at that. I'm really always the person that says, I call it the once we do this, once we do that, and I just have to slow down and enjoy all the beautiful things that are happening right now.
And any worst advice? Did anybody give you anything that you're like, "Ooh, I don't really agree with that"?
I feel like most advice, I'm like, no, I don't. You have to prove, I automatically don't trust you or don't believe you until you prove otherwise for most people. So I just really try to take everything with a grain of salt.
And you've done so much since you started in 2021, but what is some advice you would give your younger self, someone you actually started?
I would say focus on figuring out what you're really good at and what feels easy. A lot of people call this the zone of genius. I think if my 22-year-old self was looking to the future, she'd be pretty impressed and happy. But then I would also tell her, enjoy every second. This is such a crazy short life. And I've had so much fun along the way, and you got to stay in the moment.
It's not on. And I vouch for that. I followed you, and I think we met 2.5 years ago at BPCon, and just seeing what you're up to, and now you're building a new construction triplex. So I think it's really cool when you've built in a community that you've built, and I know Anna can vouch for it because she's in it. But that's awesome. Our last question, we asked this to every guest, is how can we, Anna and me and our audience, help you in your business?
That is very sweet of you guys. I would just say, if you find any great women in real estate, tell them about Wire and tell them how much fun it is.
Done. And doors open again in a couple months. So you missed your chance
Yes.
this time around.
Yeah. If you want to find out more, you can go to womeninvestinrealestate.com, and we have a bunch of info about all the different things that we're doing.
Perfect. You can tell Grace has her own podcast. So she knows how to reach. So how can people reach out to you, Grace, other than the website? I know you're on social media, and you want to give your handle.
The best place to reach me is grace.investing on Instagram.
Yeah. And she shares a lot of her updates, some tips, templates, a lot of things, which I really connect with. Anna and I are very go-giving. So if we learn it, we like to give it back. And so I think what you got going on is really cool. And we really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys. You have such a great podcast going. Great job. It's not easy to do. So thanks for having me.